to appear.
They're starting to get a bit, we used to call it like the Star Wars bar. You know, sort of, I mean, you've got to sort of say, really, I mean, Dave was the instigator with that, and he got to the point where, as you can probably gather, Dave is colourblind. Right? But the thing, it got to the point where he would never change in front of us. He'd go into the toilet to change, we would be waiting there, come on, let's see what we've got, see what we've got. He'd come out with something, yeah, like I said, some outrageous costume. But I mean, that's what it was in those days. It was not a serious thing, it was a fun thing, you know, and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to sort of bring sort of fun and humour back into the business, really.
I read a quote that said that Dave is so far ahead of fashion it still hasn't caught up with him yet. But of course there is the famous quote from Dave, isn't there? Was it Jim was giving him particular grief?
Well, yeah, Jim used to give him grief about the costume. I think what it was, I think Jim would really like to have the guts to wear something like that. He wouldn't do it, you know. And I remember Dave coming out of the toilet one night with this sort of thing looked like fog on Lego and sort of like that. And Jim said, "Oh no, I'm not going on stage when you're dressed like that, you know." And Dave said, "Well, you write them, Jim, I'll sell them." And that stuck to this day.
And he did, because that did.
It did. I mean, it was. I mean, sort of after my day for that thing. I mean, he had some stick in those days, but he was just water off a duck's back. You know.
So you're now pop stars. I mean, how did you take to that stardom?
We didn't at first. I mean, sort of like Chaz was always trying to, even in the early days, he was always trying to get us to go to these sort of trendy London clubs and things like that, to be seen or noticed or like that. And it wasn't us. We used to like travel to Top of the Pops in the old sort of beat up van, and we couldn't wait to get back home to Wolverhampton. Really, it wasn't our scene then. We couldn't. It wasn't in us. You know, we just liked coming back and sort of just still mixing with our old schoolmates and people, our friends. I think at the back there, sort of from the old days, it was just something that was just with us.
Well, you're famed for that, never having turned back on your Wolverhampton roots.
Well, I mean, you can always sort of I think Nod made the quote once. He said, "You can sort of take the boy out of the black country, but you can't take the black country out of the boy." And it's so true. You know, it doesn't matter, you know, I mean, it's sort of, I remember sort of when the very first time we went to America, and we were big in all, we were like third on the bill on the first to Humble Pie and sort of Peter Frampton, people like that, and we got to our dressing room, there's always all this food in the dressing room. We said, "Oh, we're in the wrong room." No, no, that's your room, guys. What, all this food, you know, sort of, that's yours, guys. Who's going to pay for it? Yeah. You're not going to pay for it. It's part of the scene. What? You know, unbelievable, really. You know, and then they sort of come to the point where you sort of say, "Well, what would you like on the rider? Anything special?" No. You know, sort of they ask, but I mean, you see some of the riders, especially with American bands. I mean, there's sort of, I won't mention names, but there's a few things where they wanted this special spring water from Colorado in the dressing room, right? Now, to me, spring water, right? Spring water. And it wasn't the one that they asked for, so they weren't going to play. He was at the Forum in Los Angeles. There was 18,000 people there, and they weren't going to play because their spring water wasn't in the dressing room. And I always remember the promoter got the lead singer up the wall by his neck, right? And he got his face and said, "On that stage. Get on that stage." And he went on the stage. Yes. But I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, it's things that you learn. I mean, we weren't very good at being pop stars. You know, really, we were not very good at being pop stars. I remember the very first time we went to the States, we landed in Los Angeles. We had our crew with us, about 6 of them at the time, and the guy from record company's waiting for us, and said, "Okay, guys, the cars are outside." And I sort of regarded there's like two big black stretch limousines, and like a minibus for the crew. We get in the minibus, right, and the crew get in the limousines, right, and they drive off down towards like into Sunset Strip where we're staying, and the record company guy is sort of like standing there scratching his head and says, "These guys are ultra cool." They let the crew go in the limousines and they go in the minibus, you know. But we didn't know anything about that. We didn't know. It wasn't part of our makeup.
That video took us, I think, to 1973, and of course then comes the terrible life-changing tragedy that you have with the car crash. there's no point in me asking about the car crash itself, is there? Because you know nothing about it.
Nothing about it at all. It's strange. I mean, I try and explain to people. A lot of people think I'm sort of like giving a lot of crap, but it's so true. You know, I mean, I still lived near where it came down on the Compton Road, and I still live there.
Put some more questions. There's a couple there. Sorry, Dave, just sort of the microphone, so he's running around. When's your next gig, Don? Is it the one in Edinburgh? Is that your next gig?
Yeah, that's the next. And we go to I think that's the one in Edinburgh. Yeah, and then just between now and the end of the year, we've got Russia, Germany, and of course the UK tour. What we've done this year with the UK tour, we split it in two parts. We're doing some in November, 2 weeks in November, and about 2 weeks in December, but in between Russia and the Czech Republic and Germany.
Go ahead.
Don, I hear just before you done a gig that you actually had to go down the high street and borrow a drum kit from someone.
Where'd you hear that from?
I read it somewhere, and
right.
I passed it on to my mate Dave, who passed it on to yourself. Yeah, can you just elaborate on that a little bit,
It
please?
is very true. I think it was in the Czech Republic, really, and we were on the same bill with, I will tell you the name, it's the American band Survivor. Did the Rocky theme. Anyway, sort of, it was arranged that both bands, Survivor and myself, the drummer and Survivor and myself, would use the same kit. And when we got there, sort of being sort of the typical American situation, there's no way he was going to let me use that kit. They were top of the bill, so there's no way he was going to let me use that kit. And there's nothing else, so I didn't have a kit to use. What am I going to do? And then one of the local crew from the Czech Republic said, oh, there's some houses about 100 yards away that way. I'm from this area, and I know that a young kid there, he plays drums. So I said, okay. So I went down, tapping on the door. Right, and his mum came to the door. He was from the 70s, looking at me. So then, what's up? I said, it's a long story, but I heard that your son plays drums, and I don't have any drums for tonight. Can I borrow his drums? And I said, in return, I'll get you all passes and what have you for the concert, and get all some CDs and photographs and all that signed, you know. So yeah, so I took the drums to the concert. I purposely didn't hit them that hard that night. These poor kids, you know, had the little kid who meant the world to him. But then, so that was all fine. But the next night, it was all changed around. We did another show with Survivor, and it was arranged that I could use the kit. And we went on before Survivor, and I annihilated the kit.
Don, if you're ever down Brighton Way, I've got a 1970s Premier kit. You can borrow it any time.
How many drum kits have you got through in your time?
It's not too much like the drums. It's the skins and the fittings, really. I mean, sort of, I've been so lucky through my career. I think my biggest memories were the very first American tour in 1973. And at that time, my love of drums was Ludwig, and I couldn't really afford Ludwig at that time. They were very expensive. We were playing in Chicago with Humble Pie, and Jerry Shirley, the Humble Pie's drummer, his drum tech was going to Ludwig's factory that day in Chicago, and he says, can I come along with you? And he said, of course, and he took me along, introduced me to Kay Holston, who was Bill Ludwig the first personal secretary, and she arranged me to have if like the old work split. It took me about, it's only a tiny factory, but it's one of the very few family businesses that are in America. So I got arranged with this guy, was taking me around the factory, and I always remember it. There was Bill Ludwig the first, who was like checking snare drums as they came off the line. And she got me a deal, and then I got to the point where I never had to pay for any more drums. They would, I signed to Ludwig, and they would ship drums wherever I want to in the world, which is fantastic. And I always remember, I think it was about 1983 or 1984, Ludwig had their 75th anniversary. And what they did, they invited 75 drummers from around the world to Chicago for the weekend for a big celebration. And I got invited from England, and they had all our sizes. They had dinner suits made for everybody. And we got to Chicago. Can you imagine 75 drums in the same hotel? You can imagine what that was like, you know. And we all went to by coast to this big warehouse, and sadly Bill the first was since dead, and there was Bill the second and Bill the third. And there was like the famous Joe Morello, the famous jazz drummer. They were sitting down the front, and there were 75 drummers, all in dinner suits, all teared up the back, you know, sort of a fantastic experience.
Anyone else wants to ask a question? Quite a few hands going up.
Do you have any recollections of Chaz Chandler mentioning any anecdotes about Jimi Hendrix?
Do you have any recollection of Chaz Chandler telling you any stories about Jimi Hendrix?
A lot. A lot. I mean, he was sort of, it was great the one time, it was sort of like, Chaz was fantastic at manipulating things. Hendrix's first tour of America was sort of supporting the monkeys. I mean, imagine that. Chaz did it on purpose, knowing very well he would get kicked off the tour because there'd be an uproar from all the young kids' parents with this guy, big black arms playing the guitar. And there was a classic thing he said that there was something wrong with Hendrix's amplifier. He was having problems. He's getting more and more angry because there's something going wrong with his amplifier. And he had the Gibson Flying V in those days he was using. And he turned around and took the guitar up and threw it. And it was like a spear going through it. He said it went straight through the Marshall cabinet. He said it was just like an arrow going into the kit. And it was just pure fluke that it happened. And of course the crowd went berserk, thought it was part of the act. He was just in being angry. And also what Chaz did when he brought Hendrix to England, Chaz had got no money from the Animals, and he had to borrow money to bring Hendrix to England. And Hendrix lived with Chaz and his wife for quite a few years before he decided to become successful. And his first show, Hendrix, was a tiny club in London called the Bag of Nails. And what he did was an invited audience, you know, to showcase Hendrix. And what he did, he purposely sat Eric Clapton on the front row to watch it. And he said he wished he'd have had a photograph, because like Eric Clapton sitting there with his mouth open, just watching this guy play. But Chaz said that he wasn't like, he said he always had his guitar with him, Hendrix. He said, but it was just like a natural. It sort of, he was there. He's just like a natural guitarist. And what it was, when Chaz was in New York, when he was told about this guy Jimi Hendrix, he was told by an ex-girlfriend, go and see this guy play guitar down this club, and Hendrix was playing with a soul band. Now, there's no way you would have ever envisaged that guy became the guy that we all know. Phenomenal.
Who wants to ask a question next? There's one of...
Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've got Slide Live about 7 times. Every day is my favourite single.
Yeah.
That's that. How much truth is there about this Australian bloke coming to sing with you, this Dublin bloke?
It's not going to happen.
Never.
No, it's too far away, it's too complicated.
Yeah. And his wife's in the same band as well, isn't she?
Sorry, Andy.
His wife's in the band as well, isn't she?
Oh, that's even worse.
Yeah.
Never play with animals, kids or boys.
I was soldier from Guest Mountains, all of you. I was an old Ford Scorpio, we sold you.
Oh, that picture just a long time ago. Well, you know the number plate you made? This is the guy from the garage in West Bromwich where I bought the Ford Scorpio from. And I had the number plate, it was N13EAT.
Yeah.
And I just put the 1 and 3 together to make it beat.
Yeah.
And the times I got stopped by the police, I gave up in the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go on, tell them about the tractor, the guy with the tractor with Envy, when you said to me that the guy nearly ran into you.
No, I had a head-on collision with a combine harvester. Yeah, that's the story. I mean, this is fantastic. I was down the country lanes down in Sussex, and I was going a bit too fast, and I went round the corner, and there was this combine harvester, and I just bounced off the tyre and just rolled the car off. And I remember sort of filling in the insurance claims form, sent it off, you know, sort of, and then a few days later my insurance man called me up and said, I've just got one question, Don. Didn't you see it?
Thank you.
Thank you. There's one here.
Don?
One.
Hello.
Yeah.
I need the mic.
Yeah, you better, so everyone's going to hear you, don't they?
Right, favourite song, all of them.
What's
Favourite song, all of them. Everyone, every single one.
Yeah.
My question is, when you were doing Top of the Pops, what's it like miming to the songs?
there's not much soul there because of the TV and the cameras and all that kind of thing. You only have a tiny speaker, and you really can't hear it. I mean, you're basically busking it more than anything. I think really mind you, to be fair, when we used to do Top of the Pops, the singer was always live. He sang to the backing track, and we mimed to it. And I don't know if you've probably all seen that video clip of Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
It was in my drinking days. And, we were supposedly miming to the track, and I decided to start to play live and do a drum solo. Right, well,
Hi, Don. My name's Mark. Favourite sleigh track, Squeeze Me, Please Me.
right.
Okay, bit of a wild card. You obviously started in the 60s, and there's been a lot made about bands from the 60s being screwed over contractually. I just wondered whether you look back now at your time with the band and think, actually, yeah, we were had over by anybody.
No, because I mean, the only time we were had over was when we went to the Bahamas to play. You know, so the deal was, Carol knows this story, the deal was we were meant to go over there to play for $100 a week each, and all the hotel and food paid for, and because the club was in a very dodgy part of the island, we wasn't making any money. But we thought, well, we don't care, you know, we don't care not having any money, just a few dollars, whatever it was, during the week. We were living in the hotel, so we could eat and drink in the hotel. So we thought, until after 6 weeks, the hotel managed to send for us and told us we had a $35,000 hotel bill. You know, this is 1968. And we should have been there for 8 weeks. We were there for 3.5 months trying to pay it off. And in the end, we never paid it off. We had to skip the island in the end. But that's the only time we've ever been sort of stitched over, if you like. But I mean, but what a place to be stuck in the Bahamas. I was engaged at the time to a girl in Wolverhampton. I used to write to her and say, I'm sorry, I can't get back. Please be stuck in the Bahamas. I used to get there, yeah, sure.
I bet you didn't come back with a suntan, did you?
Sorry?
I bet you didn't come back with a suntan.
Slightly.
Yeah.
But I was on the beach every day, 4 young kids. I was 20, I think, at the time. Having a great time.
How long was you in the bedroom?
Yeah.